one of the good things about child's pose is it's a, they call it child's pose. It's very much like a fetus, right? You're kind of curled up. And that is something that our body remembers, being in that tucked position as a safe position to be in, right? In utero is very safe and cocooned. So there's this psychological, neurological connection between just that shape and that feeling of safety. It's also really good to just stretch some parts of the body that we may not really get to stretch that often, namely kind of the lower back, upper hip area, and you get flexion in your joints. It is a little bit weight bearing though, which is why we're going to have so many different variations. So if you cannot bend your knees very much and you cannot flex your hips very much, you're going to use the chair. I definitely would recommend, if your knees are sensitive to pressure, to put padding under the shins. My problem is that my knees are sensitive to pressure and I can't flatten my ankle without my foot cramping up. So what I'm going to do, I've already got one blanket down here. I'm just going to use that. I'm going to add one more. So now I've got 3 layers of blanket that are even right here. I'm going to bring the chair a little closer to me. So now if I put the crease of my ankle right there, I don't have to like flatten my whole foot and my ankle doesn't have to completely point. It's a little less intense. I'm going to bring the chair just a tiny bit closer to me. So the idea here next would be to put something between the calf and the thigh to make sure your knee doesn't have to bend that much. So your bigger pillow, try to stick it toward the knee, not toward the foot. So you're going to get it right in the back of the knee and then sit down on it and just see if that does okay. Can your knees be bent that much? The closer the pillow is to the knee, the more open the angle will be. The closer it is to the foot, the more closed the angle will be. Then I'm going to bring my forearms onto the chair. Now I can adjust the chair. If it's really close to me and maybe my back doesn't like leaning over at all, I can put my elbows down. You're welcome to pad the chair for your elbows if it's too hard. Support your skull on the forehead, and this is your child's pose. So you're just barely leaning forward. If you like coming forward more and want more stretch in your lower back, you would move the chair just a few inches, 6 inches or 8 inches away from you. And then you could do this again, although this is a little bit on the shoulder. You can kind of feel it under here. What you could do is put your forearms down and bring your head to your forearms. Now my butt is moving backward. What I don't want to do is something that looks like this, where I'm not supported. I feel like almost shaky. I can't really relax. You're trying to support yourself as much as you possibly can. So head higher than rear end here. Okay. If you can go down further, you would replace the chair with another pillow or more than one pillow. Once again, what we don't want to do is be with your rear end way up in the air and your head down. That's not going to feel very good at all. It's kind of the opposite sensation as what we're after. So I would build myself a little platform that's not as high as the chair, but still, way higher than the floor. So I put 2 blocks down. I'm going to put the bolster up on top of it. And then I can bring that a little bit in between my thighs. Almost up to my belly button here. So my belly kind of touches the end. And then I can bring my hands on that and I can lay forward. Now my head and my rear end are almost equidistant now from the floor. I still feel like I'm arching my back a little bit. So to prevent that, I'm just going to move everything backward a little bit, kind of snuggle downward instead of so much forward. Maybe even adding just a tad bit higher support under the head. So the motion is downward instead of down in the hip, not down at my face. And my solar plexus is touching the bolster. Okay. If that is too easy, you're just going to start taking things away. So you could take the blocks away. And you could take your support back here away or make it smaller. Your knees can also go wider. And then you can come down and be more like this. Hug the bolster. For the purposes of a restorative pose, even if you can do a non-supported child's pose, I would suggest using some support here. It's just more easeful. And because I'm talking, I have my head to the side. If you don't want to have your head to the side, stack your hands, put your forehead there. So you've got a little room for your nose. You're not like squishing your nose. And you're looking for some nice breaths that move into the lower back. And a nice slow exhale. You can visualize or audio visualize in your mind the om sound that you made earlier. Only on your exhalation. So inhale, nothing, exhale, here in your head, the O and the mm. And pay attention to feedback from your body. Things are going to start talking to you pretty quickly for most people in child's pose. You do not want to stay past comfort. When it stops being comfortable, it is time to move. So I'm feeling it in my knee. So I'm going to bring my hands down on either side of my pillow and then press up into all fours. Now, if you could stay longer, you're welcome to stay longer, but while I still have you on here, let's go over what you do afterwards. So come up to all fours and just hold yourself up in all fours for a moment. And if you're on the chair, you can just have your hands on the chair. Take one leg back to stretch the calf muscle and also to get blood back down through that foot. And then bring that one down and do the other side. I don't need to touch that pillow back there. It just happened to be back there. And last week we did child's pose. There are other versions of child's pose besides having to do an actual like knees down, head down child's pose. And I want to show you those today because we're not really warmed up for that knee down, like kneeling, head down child's pose right now. You can do child's pose on your side. Take care to know how hard your floor is, because if it's really hard, you're going to probably want some blanket under because your hip's going to be on the floor and your shoulder's going to be on the floor. So I could unfold this again and have some padding. Maybe unfold it one more time. I don't know. I guess it depends on how tall you are. That might work. So if you're really tall, you'll need to make the blanket bigger. I want my outer hip to be on top of the support here. And I also want my rib cage to be on the support. There's a little gap for my head. My shoulder can go in this gap and my head is here. I'm also going to grab a bolster. Now, we almost did it a second ago when we sat up, but in that position, think of if you were sitting in a chair and the chair was laid down on its side. That's not quite child's pose. That's more, right angles. We want it to be a little bit more rounded. So I'm going to go ahead and lay on my side, but I'm going to tuck in tighter with my knees and I'm going to bring my head forward a little bit. It's head support adjusted as needed so that your neck and head are pretty much lined up. And then the bolster, I'm going to hug it. So stick the end of it between your leg, and then you're going to wrap your arms around it, and you're going to just create that little hug shape. So whichever position you've selected for yourself, what can you do to really relax into it? Notice where you're holding yourself almost resisting the relaxation. Maybe it's because you need more support. You can always add props. Observe again where the mind has wandered. Bring it back to what you are noticing in this moment about the body. The position of the body, the sensation of where you're touching the floor. Where you have support. The sensation of temperature. The sensation of your breathing. You want to approach this with an attitude of curiosity. Even if you've done this 1,000 times. Notice what about the position that you're in feels like it's getting uncomfortable a little bit. Now, if you're in Shavasana, you probably don't feel that. But if you're in the sideline child's pose or in the back bend, you might be feeling, yeah, I don't want to stay here forever. Notice what are you feeling? Is it your back, your shoulders, your head, your neck? You know, for me, it's my shoulder and my right arm is going to sleep because I'm laying on my arm. So everybody, no matter what position you're in, let's take a breath in and just open up your fingers and kind of spread your toes apart. And then relax and just do that again. So breathing in, spread your toes apart, open up your hand, and exhale, just let them relax. Good. If you're on your back, go ahead and bend your knees one at a time. And you'll roll over to be along with me in the sideline position. Now I'm just going to move the bolster out of the way. And you could just be more in that chair sideline position. Make sure that you aren't dizzy. And we'll use this top hand to push, and you can use your bottom arm to push too. And then bringing yourself up nice and slowly.